How's it going, everybody? In this mini lecture video, we are going to be talking about coming of age stories or variations on the Bildungsroman. So, what is the Bildungsroman, you may ask? Well, it is a novel about the moral and psychological growth of the main character. The etymology of the Bildungsroman, it's a German word that is a combination of two German words. German's cool like that. They just kind of have the awesome ability to put words together to create like really succinct terms. So Bildung means education and Roman means novel. So a Bildungsroman is a novel of education. It's a novel that deals with the formative years of a main character. They're coming into the world, a novel of their education. So films, novels, stories that deal with youthful characters coming of age. There are four primary characteristics to a Bildungsroman, to a coming of age story. In these stories, the goal of the protagonist is maturity. The second, they have to overcome some sort of difficulty, and the difficulties that they have to overcome can be any kind of difficulties. Anything from sort of struggling with their faith, overcoming grief, pushing back against society's expectations. They have to overcome some sort of difficulties in their quest for maturity. There is a conflict between the protagonist and society's expectations of what the protagonist will be and think and do. And there is some sort of spiritual or moral or psychological growth that occurs in the protagonist. One of the most common parts of a coming of age story, something that's absolutely essential, as we'll talk about in just a couple of minutes, is this move from innocence towards experience. So the overall structure of coming of age stories, we begin with the setup. We begin with exposition that introduces us to the protagonist. We find out who they are, where they live, what their life is like. And then the bulk of the novel deals with formative experiences, things that shape the protagonist's character. Often we're going to see some sort of crisis or a loss of faith. Something serious is going to happen that's going to push them towards the third part, which is maturity. They find a sense of peace or belonging. They find themselves into moving from childhood into adulthood, from innocence to experience. There are four major types of protagonist in coming of age stories in Bildungsromans. We have the orphan. This is common. We see this in stories like Harry Potter or Jane Eyre, where the main character, the protagonist, has lost their parents and they have to find their way out into the world. We see the misfit is our second type of protagonist. These are characters that quite simply don't fit in with society in any meaningful kind of way. We see this a lot in, for example, in Holden Caulfield from The Catcher in the Rye. He's very much a misfit, very much a rebel against the sort of expectations of society. The third protagonist is the runaway. These are characters who, they do what the name says they do. They run away. This is our Huck Finn, running away from his father and taking off down the river. And then finally, we have the artist. These are our art characters. Our characters who are they're sensitive. They're very in tune with creation. So what are some common themes or plots for coming of age stories? Well, one of the things that we generally tend to see in these stories is a question about God or faith, some sort of spiritual crisis that the protagonist goes through. As I've said a couple of times so far, innocence versus experience is one of the big themes, particularly the move from innocence into and toward experience. We see our characters searching for identity. They're trying to figure out who they are. They're searching for belonging. They're trying to fit in to society. They're searching for connection. They're trying to find, this could be love, friendship, whatever, some sort of connection, person to person. Another common theme or plot that we see is this idea of being away, going away to boarding school, living away apart from parents, immediate family, or even running away. This idea that there is sort of like a normal sense of life, and the protagonist has been removed from that sense of normalcy. Again, a lot of characters in these coming of age stories experience some sort of loss or grief, and they eventually move towards sort of a realization, sometimes a rebellion against, but sometimes a sort of move towards societal expectations and norms. So, wrapping up, in the Bildungsroman, in coming of age stories, we've got a young protagonist. They're going through something, some sort of crisis. They're searching for identity or their place in the world. They're experiencing loss. They're moving towards some sort of understanding or knowledge. And really what this comes down to, what this really boils down to, is passing from childhood into adulthood. That's about all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you all in the next one.